So given this complexity and uncertainty and all of these things we've discussed, you often seriously need to shift your perspective from trying to be right to trying to be less wrong or not catastrophically wrong. And one way to illustrate this is the idea that, okay, so you're coming home from a bar late at night, and so there's a person drives next to you and says, "Hey, would you like a ride?" So do you get into their car? And it's it might be very difficult to actually um, predict how safe is it to get in that car. Are they on drugs? Are they on alcohol? Are they thinking they want to uh, take you to the woods and kill you or something like this? Uh, so we don't know how safe it is. They might be just a helpful person, but you don't go to the car if you have uncertainty about the safety. So you only go to the car when you're extremely certain that it's safe. So in this sense, it's often easier to know what to do than to predict what would happen. So and a good saying by Nassim Nicholas Taleb is that good decisions are good decisions before the event and also after the event. So, for example, being cautious about pandemic is a necessary thing, no matter how many times there are sort of false alarms. And if the fire alarm is uh, beeping in your house, you really need to go and check it, no matter if you really think that, yeah, it's probably a false alarm. And so we can know often what we need to do, even if we don't know what the actual situation is. And we will go to this more deeply when we talk about anti-fragility heuristics. But you already know much of this based on what we spoke about convexity in the um, fourth part of this series. And I wanted to relate to you an example of something where a surprising adaptation uh, catches people off guard. So there's this story about these colonialists in Hanoi, Vietnam, in the beginning of the 20th century. And so they thought that they wanted to um, improve their living conditions by putting plumbing under their housing because they really wanted indoor toilets, which was a great idea. But the thing was that when these colonialists when they actually implemented the plumbing, it turned out that rats really, really liked the plumbing because they had safe breeding grounds in there and they could freely move from one house to another uh, and use that as their own uh, nice little metro system. So what this guys then did, they thought that, okay, so yeah, well, we need to get rid of the rats. And they decided to put a bounty on rats so that people are incentivized to uh, catch these uh, rats and kill them. And so this produced a new profession of these rat killers who went to the sewers and killed rats. But then the bureaucrats weren't really too happy for people to bring loads and loads of dead rats on their nice little offices. So they thought, okay, well, just bring the tails as proof that the rat is dead. And so these rat hunter uh, people, they then changed their strategy because they realized that killing the rat actually produces less tails because then the rat uh, can't go and breed more rats who would produce more tails and therefore more revenue for them. And so they started cutting the tails of the rats and letting the rats run free. And this created a like a large boom of rats, and the bounty was eventually it had to be scrapped. And there's a similar story from I think it was in India where uh, they the colonialists realized that there are a lot of cobras around and they don't like cobras in their houses. So they put this bounty on cobras, and then people started breeding cobras in their backyards, and uh, and the cobra population just skyrocketed. And then at some point they realized that this was a stupid idea, and they scrapped the bounty. And so people thought, oh, I'm no longer getting any money for these snakes, so they just let them go freely to nature, and it ended up the cobra population ended up being thriving even better than before. So you can perhaps see the pattern here, how these one-dimensional evaluations of what an intervention should do and don't necessarily go so when people adapt to or have their own goals and mindsets based on which they evaluate the opportunities uh, uh, and other factors of their environment. And this is called by many names. So it's called the second order effect. Iatrogenics is the harm caused by the healer. A second order effect is a situation where a solution to a problem creates another problem. Unintended consequences is one, externalities, but also like cobra effect, spillovers, boomerangs, backfire effect. We had an interesting talk once with some interdisciplinary, very experienced people, and we asked them about the framework they were using, and we asked like, okay, so at what point do you think about these side effects? And they're like, oh, we don't have anything like that in the framework. And for a while, we were kind of making fun of them, like, oh yeah, well, you don't have a side effect consideration in your thinking, until we realized that, yeah, well, actually they have, but they just call it unintended consequences. So yeah, there's a very nice book that documents World Bank development projects that have had very good intentions and very, on paper, very great um, chances of success, but have eventually produced counterproductive results. It's not a very pleasant read, but I think it's necessary.